Hey guys, hope you're having an amazing day today. My name is Steve. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to the top 10 scary Irish urban legends. I don't know what it is about this time of year, but I am in a spooky mood. I'm really interested in exploring the paranormal side of things, or the scary side of things, the spooky side of things, ghost stories, hauntings, urban legends, all sorts of things like that, guys. And I realized I have never explored the topic of Irish urban legends. I just did a video about the Irish ritual or the Irish tradition of Samhain, the holiday that was the start of Halloween, basically. And I thought that was really interesting. And it just kind of got me in the mood to explore more topics kind of that go along with this time of the year, so to speak. And so I came across this video, the top 10 scary Irish urban legends, and I think this video, especially the thumbnail, definitely grabbed my attention. So I think this will be very interesting. So let's just go ahead and jump in here and check out the top 10 scary Irish urban legends.
On to another urban legends video. Today we have a country that is very dear to my heart, Ireland. Its history goes back thousands of years and contains many amazing stories. Some of them are pretty scary though. They've survived since ancient times. Does this mean there is some truth to them? Let's see what you think.
Probably so much deeper than what you see in the US.
This is the top 10 scary Irish urban legends. Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Demon Bridge of County Monaghan. This is a story of death. The Demon Bride is said to have terrorized funeral goers for at least 200 years. Her victims now lie in the churchyards where they fell. Across County Monaghan, people report the same thing. The Demon Bride watches funerals and waits as the deceased are laid to rest. As everyone leaves, the Demon Bride approaches a young man straggling behind. She transforms into a beautiful young woman and makes him promise to meet her a month from that day back there at the graveyard. She seals the deal with a kiss and then vanishes. As he leaves the graveyard, his blood runs cold and a deep sense of despair washes over him. He realizes he has sold his body and soul to the evil spirit and his life has been forfeited. Over the next month, he descends into madness before eventually dying. He is laid to rest in the same graveyard as before, exactly a month after he first met the Demon Bride, his promise fulfilled. Next up, number 9.
Okay. That is one hell of a story. Oh my goodness, man. That is spooky, dude. Wow. That's a great, great urban legend, man. Where did that come from? That is so original. I've never heard anything remotely like that one, you know? Wow. All right, man. That is a spooky one, man. That could be like, you could take the bones of that urban legend and create a really good like book or a good movie about that, you know, because the guy is like basically falling apart over an entire month. So that would really work for an actual like story or an actual, you know, like a longer story, like a movie or something like that. Oh, that was spooky. All right, let's continue.
Now we have the Banshee. The Banshee is a female spirit that wails in the night as a sign that death is coming for a family member. Legend says the Banshee has long streaming hair, wears a grey cloak over a green dress, and her eyes are red from constant weeping. According to the Ancient Legends of Ireland book, the Banshee may be seen at night as a shrouded woman crouched beneath the trees, lamenting with veiled face or flying past the moonlight crying bitterly, and the cry of the spirit is mournful beyond all other sounds on earth and betokens certain death for some member of the family whenever it is heard in the silence of the night. Could not think of a more scary description myself if I tried. Moving on to number 8.
And I don't want to pause too much, but I just got to say, there is nothing more spooky than to hear a baby laughing in the middle of the night when you don't know where that baby's coming from. I don't know if I've ever actually had that experience, but you know, you see that on movies or whatnot. And for some reason, hearing well, not just a baby, but a child laughing when there's no child around, that would be very spooky. And then also just hearing the loud female scream at the top of, you know, very, very loud. And just like that, oh man, in the middle of the night, that would be spooky as well. I can't think of many things more spooky than that. Honestly, I don't know what it is about those sounds, but yeah, when you're not expecting them, I think those would be very, very spooky. And so the Banshee would probably be very spooky, yeah.
8 now, we have the Dergdu. Many countries have a vampire legend.
Dergdu.
This is the Irish one. The name translates from Irish as red bloodsucker. Originally, the Dergdu was a normal girl who lived over 2,000 years ago. She was said to be beautiful, with blood-red lips and pale blonde hair. Her true name has been lost in the sands of time, overshadowed by what she became. Men travelled from all over Ireland in the hopes of just being with her. However, she fell in love with a local man who was very poor. He was perfect for her, but without money, her father would never let them marry. Instead, he married her off to an old, cruel man who abused her. He liked to draw blood from her while she was locked up in a tower cell. One day, she gave up hope of her true love ever rescuing her and committed suicide by refusing to eat. Her dying breath was a vengeance against the living. Her undead corpse rose from the earth on the night she was buried, thirsting for the blood that was taken from her. She was now the Dergdu, stealing blood from children, from the innocent, and especially from young men. She would call to them in the night with a haunting siren song that lured them to their deaths. Some say she still wanders the Irish countryside at night, calling out to her next victim. At number 7 now.
Wait, aren't they supposed to, like, if they bite you, don't you turn into a vampire? Isn't that the whole thing? Or maybe, I guess they could just completely kill you. I don't know. How does that work? Vampires to me is one of the, urban legends that, I don't know, it was just never that spooky to me. It's not really a spooky urban legend. Although, obviously, if that happened in real life, that would obviously be a scary situation. But I don't know. It's just one of those things that's just not, I don't know. Why is that? Anyway, let's continue.
We have the changelings. These are mythical fairy creatures that take the place of a newborn human child that has been stolen by the fairies. The fairies will steal the child to act as a servant for them. Families would try and see if their baby was actually a changeling through a number of different ways. One of them involved placing them over a fire. If the baby was a changeling, it would leave by just climbing up the chimney. The real child would then be returned. It was thought that the fairies preferred to steal baby boys. As a result, many Irish families would dress their baby boys in dresses to confuse the fairies. Moving on to number 6 now.
No way. Is that, I don't know about just Irish photos, but in a lot of old photos I've seen from America, for example, they always like have the little boys dressed in dresses and stuff like that. You go back, you look at the photos from like the early 1900s, late 1800s, you see that a lot. Is that why? Is that where that comes from? They're literally trying to protect their little boys? Wow. I bet you that has something to do with that. Wow, okay.
Now we have the Dullahan. The Dullahan is a headless rider of the night who carries his own head under one arm. His mouth is locked in a hideous grin that touches both sides of his head. His flesh is rotting and he uses the spine of a human for a horsewhip. His job is as a foreteller of death. When he stops riding, a person is due to die. He will call out the person's name, at which point they drop to the floor dead. There is no way to stop the Dullahan. All locks and gates open when he approaches. They don't like being watched either and will throw blood over anyone who dares to do so. This is also taken as a mark that they are among the next to die. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the Fetch. The Fetch is a supernatural double of a living person. You can have your own Fetch. They're like a doppelganger, but with much more sinister undertones. Their sightings are regarded as an omen of impending death. If a person sees this dark double of themselves, it's said to mean they are going to die soon. Sometimes the Fetch may even have a clue as to how that person will die. Perhaps a bullet wound in the head or a slash across the chest. Either way, it's not something you want to come across in your life. The Fetch is said to appear ghostly or shadowy and may vanish down alleyways or halls if followed. At number 4 now.
Okay, just like the first one, that one is right on up there as one of the spookiest situations that if it actually was real, like that would be incredibly scary to just, you're walking along in the middle of the night down a dark alley and you just come face to face with an entity, a being, a shrouded figure that looks just like you. Oh man, dude, I can't imagine many situations that would be more spooky than that. And especially once like if you know this urban legend here and you saw that happen, whoo, okay. Yeah, that would be a very spooky one as well.
Now we have the puka. According to Irish folklore, these are strange little creatures obsessed with causing as much havoc as possible. They visit farms and seaside communities to tear down fences and disturb the animals there. The creepy part is that the legend says the puka sometimes just stand outside of a farmhouse and calls the people outside by their name. If anyone steps out, the puka will carry them away forever. There are stories of them being bloodthirsty and vampire-like creatures, as well as ones that describe them as man-eating beings, hunting down, killing, and eating their victims. Next up at number 3 now, we have the Alp Luatra. This creature is also known as the joint eater. Don't worry, it doesn't eat your joint, but this creature does something just as strange. It's said to be a newt-like creature that preys on people who fall asleep near rivers or streams. It jumps down their throat and lives in their stomach so that it can eat the victim's food. In the collection of folk tales called Beside the Fire, a farmer was starving from an Alp Luatra that was in his stomach, and he found a way to get rid of the creature. He ate large amounts of salted meat until he could eat no more. Then he lay by a stream with his mouth open. The Alp Luatra was driven to thirst by all the salt, and eventually they all jumped out of the man and into the water. Gross. Moving on to number 2 now, we have the Black Cat of Killarkey House. There is said to be a beast that wanders the forests of County Dublin around the old Killarkey House. The animal has been sighted for centuries there, and people say it's supernatural. For a lot of people, for a while, this was nothing more than a superstition. That was until 1968 when a young couple bought the Killarkey house and started renovating it. The hired workers there reported strange noises and events and a big black cat with demonic eyes that haunted them. It would appear and disappear in a moment. The owners didn't believe them until they saw it too, just standing in the hallways staring at them and snarling. The couple got a priest to perform an exorcism on the house, which seemed to get rid of the beast for a while. Then a group of actors held a seance in the house which brought the black cat back, and with many people now saying it still prowls there to this day. And finally at number 1 now, we have the slough. Some say these spectral creatures are demons, but a closer term would probably be malicious spirits. The slough are dead sinners who have been doomed to spend an eternity hunting for the souls of people who are dying. According to Irish folklore, they come from the west, flying like a flock of birds, trying to enter a house where they sense someone is dying in order to steal their soul and rob them of a happy afterlife. It was said that many families would actually shut their west-facing windows at all times to keep the slough out of their homes. Some folklore experts have compared this to the Wild Hunt, a European folktale about ghostly hounds or spirits traveling around in packs foretelling of death and disaster. Well, some of those are pretty dark, but that's the whole fun with urban legends. We've done almost 10 countries now, I think.
All right, guys, this was interesting. Some very unique urban legends that are not at all similar to anything I've ever heard of, which is unusual. You know, I went into this thinking that I probably have heard most of these to a certain extent, like, you know, they would be different in some way, but no, like some of these I literally had never heard anything like this, and they were very unique. Definitely, if they were real, would be absolutely crazy scary. And I thought about a couple of these that I thought would be the most spooky if they were actually real. But the interesting thing about urban legends is, where do they come from? You know, and the fact that so many people, you go back, you know, hundreds of years ago, like, for example, the last one, they would actually shut their windows. People actually believed this stuff on it, you know, like everybody basically seemed like they believed this stuff back then. And yet no one really believes this stuff now. It's so interesting, you know, what happened? Why all of a sudden did people go from believing these stories to not believing these stories? Because obviously, if, for example, if people were, you know, like, what happened to, like, for example, why did all of a sudden people just say, oh, the how do you pronounce that? The slew, oh, that's not real anymore. But everybody believed it back then. And so I just don't know where where that changed. When did that happen where people just quit believing these urban legends? But guys, you guys in Ireland have some seriously creative, very spooky urban legends. But I'd really love to know where so many of these came from. Like, did people, are they based on real life circumstances in some way that made people believe this would happen? Or did people just decide, you know, some individuals decided sometime long ago to just create a very, you know, interesting, creative, spooky story? I mean, like, you have to wonder, like, they have to come from somewhere. Like there had to be some situation with each of these that people legit had some sort of situation that happened to them that they thought was paranormal or whatever that ended up, making them tell this spooky story that then was passed down for generations and people literally believed them. But I believe in certain paranormal stuff, but, certain urban legends seem like over the top, obviously. No one ever seems to experience this stuff anymore. So, but you got to wonder, is any of the urban legends that we hear about, any on this list, do they come from any seriously real true stories in some way? I'd love to know where this stuff comes from and originally and how I got to start, and was it based on some sort of truth at all? I'm guessing some urban legends had to be based on some sort of truth, maybe even all of them to a certain extent. Maybe people were just a little bit exaggerating, or maybe they were misunderstanding what was going on, or maybe, just maybe, we today don't quite believe some of the things that maybe we should believe. I don't know. I just love this type of stuff, guys. I love the spooky stuff and just interesting stories and, I don't know. I love this type of stuff. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. Please click that like button. Feel free to drop your comments or suggestions about this video or others. And don't forget to subscribe to continue to follow me on my journey to discover my British and Irish ancestry. Until next time, guys, peace.